Animal.
Hello, welcome to the Favourite Football Podcast. You're here with me, James Brett, and also alongside me is my trusty sidekick, Ben Howard.
I'm not a sidekick, I'm a superhero.
Yeah, you go with that if you want to, mate. That's fine.
I will.
Obviously, again, Mr. Killick is not here to be hosting, so you'll have to bear with me for today, I'm afraid, people. But we shall get through all of this weekend's football, don't you worry. And to start, we have Everton 1, Chelsea 0. What do you think of that, Ben?
A little bit of a shock because we maybe thought that Everton would kind of lose this game because their form's not really been the best. They've been a bit of a dip, and with the way Chelsea have been playing as well, you'd expect them maybe to get a result there. But I thought Everton played well, and it was all basically a game won on a penalty.
It was. I think, to be honest, I think Chelsea played well. I think Everton played well. I think the difference is if you actually look at Everton, they had 28% possession in the match, which is their lowest on record in a single Premier League match. They went on to win since 2003, 2004. So they didn't dominate by any means, but they kind of used Chelsea's tactics against themselves. What Chelsea normally do when they counter teams is kind of like what Everton did to them.
Yeah, practically. And we saw that maybe it was Mendy's fault again. Like, he's been fantastic for Chelsea since he's been in, but the last 2 goals they've conceded, he's been at fault for him. When the last week he came rushing out of the box and he completely missed the ball against Leeds and then given away a penalty, I don't think he's really covered himself in glory the past 2 weeks.
No, it's a bit bizarre, really, isn't it? Because, like you said, like at the beginning of the season, he was breaking all these records for consecutive clean sheets and all the rest of it. And like you said, you had, the Leeds game when he come out, and in this game we did something quite similar when he basically just came run out and just basically fly kicked. Was it Calvert-Lewin or whoever it was? It was like a rugby tackle more than anything else. It was like Boris Johnson in that charity game. When he tackled that person, that's what it was more like.
Big Boris's was better, I must admit. But yeah, I'm not sure why he's all of a sudden deciding to come out so quickly and trying to beat the striker. But then there's 2 instances, it looked like he never really had a chance in those instances, and he's coming out for a bit like nothing, really.
Yeah, it did seem a bit strange. Like, obviously, like I said, the timing of him coming out, I don't think it necessarily seemed necessary. I was kind of like, oh, okay, he's going for that. And then didn't even look at the ball. He just went for the fly kick. He went full Cantona on that one. But like you said, he's giving away that penalty, and Sigurdsson stepped up and scored it. So fair play to him. But, Chelsea had lots of chances to equalise afterwards, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, it's the thing with Chelsea at the moment is they score goals, but it's kind of spread out throughout the team, isn't it? I mean, Werner, he's only got I would say he's done well, but he should be scoring a lot more. Havertz, he's done well, but he should be scoring a lot more. And it kind of seems to be that their goals have been spread out throughout the team. I mean, Zuma's got like 3 or 4 goals from a defender this year, and Giroud's gotten goals in the Champions League as well. So it's a bit like over-reliance on the team scoring goals rather than one person scoring a goal.
Yeah, I do actually feel that as well. Actually, the players that you thought would be the ones, stepping up, like say, like Werner and Havertz and all the rest of it. Like he's been a bit disappointing, and I didn't think he's been as clinical as I actually thought he would be in the games that I've seen him play. But you look at the sort of chances they had at the weekends, and I think it was Reece James that had most of the chances for the team. I thought
he was Chelsea's best player. Yeah, I thought he was Chelsea's best player. Hit the post and.
Yeah, a few shots as well, didn't he?
Yeah, he was there. I have to say, as a bright spark for them, and he's turned into a really good footballer. I mean, when he was on loan at Wigan, he was very impressive there. Last year, maybe it was a settling in period for them, but this year he's been the Chelsea's leading right back, and he has been producing for them. So the best chances I felt came down to him.
Yeah, I agree. And I think Mason Mount as well. I think he hit the post with a free kick. So, like we said, they did have chances to get back into the game. And I think, to be honest, I think Everton defended really well as a unit. And I think even Carlo Ancelotti sort of made a point of it afterwards, saying that the 2,000 returning fans made a total difference as his sides, held on. And, this is no small victory. Like, Chelsea had a 17-game unbeaten run. And, it was, now at Goodison Park that they've lost this. But do you really think that those fans made a difference in this game to keep
I think
going?
fans do help because when you're in an empty stadium, it's kind of, even though you might be playing away, you're still pretty even on terms of a level playing field. But if you've got fans back who are cheering and spurring you on, it's a bit like an adrenaline rush, isn't it? And you probably give that extra 5 to 10% more.
Yeah, so it must make a difference in situations like that when you really have to like dig in deep and making sure you concentrate and that the fans must make a difference. And obviously, we've just had the recent news about tier three in London, so now even less clubs. I think there's like 3 or 4 clubs that can
Yeah.
actually now play with fans. And I'm quite intrigued to see how much difference that will make in the
Yeah,
future.
that one game at Palace score. What a one game of the season. We
God, I remember that for a lifetime. At least
not a
it was a decent
lifetime.
result.
Not a lifetime, but yeah, it's because still Everton and Brighton can still obviously host games there, but then obviously everyone in entire London has just now been blown out.
Yeah, that's very true. And obviously, like you said, you have the Scousers that can still play football in stadiums with fans, and that moves us on quite nicely to Fulham 1, Liverpool 1. Bit of a shock result that one, wasn't it?
I would like to know how Liverpool got away with that one because by far Fulham were the much better team. Like during that first 30 minutes, it was like a massive onslaught for them, and it was a bit like, will Fulham really be able to keep up this pressure? And the only reason why the scoreline wasn't so big was because of Allison. Allison played fantastic as well. He made some miraculous saves, but I would say Fulham can count themselves very unlucky.
Well, it was a bit of a strange one because, like I said, like the first half, Fulham were actually so dominant, and like you said, without some really top saves from Allison and Cavallero, I think it was Fulham had 2 of the biggest chances of that half. And he didn't make the most of them. And I was pulling my hair out. 'Cause obviously, I was watching the game, and as a very unbiased Manchester United fan, I was kind of hoping Fulham might get a result. But I was like, oh, Cavallero, you got to put those
Mm,
away. I think Lookman had a couple chances as well. And the D called over Reed's goal. What a
mm.
fantastic hit across goal that was, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think that kind of sums up Lookman's and Cavaliero's career. They've obviously getting such promising attacking positions, but their end product isn't always there. And yeah, the cover of Reed finish was fantastic. The way he just obviously turned and just whacked it. No, before he's even hit it, the ball's gone in before the keeper's even gone down, and that's a fantastic finish from him.
Well, he scored in 3 consecutive home league appearances for the first time in his professional career. So, he I think we said it in previous episodes even, he's starting to look very lively for him. And he's starting to make things happen. And I suppose if you look at Fulham as a unit, as a whole, they're starting to look a bit more cohesive now, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, many of us thought that Scott Parker would be obviously the first person to be maybe sacked this year and Fulham to be bottom of the table, but they're gradually getting themselves in a position to go up the table. I think they're kind of settled on the starting 11 now, and you're kind of seeing the benefits from it. I mean, they're 1 point behind Burnley and 2 points behind Brighton. So, I mean, it's not all doom and gloom at Fulham, and you can see them improving. I mean, Zambo and Greece has played very well for them and
Mm.
been quite integral. Loftus Cheek would be good for him to be getting games as well. So you can see that Fulham are improving.
Well, I say most of the credit must go to the home side. They beat Leicester a couple of games ago. They gave Manchester City more of a game, and it's no sad thing to lose against them at the Etihad, and they played well. And they were far superior to the champions for much of the 90 minutes. So,
Mm.
and again, it comes down to I guess a somewhat controversial moment with the penalty. Obviously, it was a free kick which hit one of the players' hands, and it was given as a penalty. What do you sort of
Yeah.
think? What's your stance on that?
Oh, it's always hard, isn't it? Because it's always going to be one person against another, isn't it? And then VAR and then the rule book and all that, and it's you don't know what way it's going to go. It's like even I could say, oh, it's a penalty, but then it's going to go against, isn't it? So it's always a 50-50 grey area, no matter what. I mean, it's always going to get differentiating opinions on it.
Yeah, I suppose so. I think I was just about leaning on the camp of, yeah, it probably just about is. He sort of was turning and he sort of had his arm in what you'd call an unnatural position. But yeah, obviously Salah had the penalty, and even that wasn't the best penalty. Areola, I felt, should have got a stronger hand to that because it was pretty much right at him. He got a touch, but he sort of just trickled past him, didn't it?
Yeah, he's not missed a penalty yet for Liverpool. I mean, usually I know Ellis said he's not really confident when Salah takes a penalty, but he's never missed. But I guess he had the benefit of the doubt and a bit of luck on his side with that penalty.
I know he always looks very shaky. The last few ones we've even spoken about in recent weeks, we've just gone, "Oh, that just about got in," or he doesn't look like he's quite, like
I think
again,
it's
he's
the run
scored
up.
them.
Yeah, it's the
Yeah,
run up that's
maybe.
deceiving. Yeah, it's like it kind of goes like at an angle when he divers and then hits it in a way.
Yeah, I suppose so. But like you said, I don't think Liverpool fans are going to care long as he keeps, scoring them. But I suppose if we actually talk about Liverpool as a whole, I feel like there's there's still a frailty to the Reds this campaign, particularly in games away from home, in which they have now conceded 12 goals, a tally only surpassed by the struggling West Brom and Sheffield United, and failed to win in 5. Now, that's quite some daunting starts. I know,
Y-
obviously, they're second and
Mm.
third or whatever, but we expect
That does
more.
seem to be their Achilles heel this year, the away form, and you can blame a lot of things. You could blame the injury list they have, because Matip, apparently he's got a back problem now. He's made of biscuits, isn't he? So I think there is an issue of maybe the players being overworked and Klopp keeping the same 11. And you saw with Diego Yota as well. He
Mm.
got injured because Klopp was playing him, and he's Klopp saying, "Oh, we got to protect the players and that," but you've not protected them yourself, though.
Yeah, that's it, and that's the argument that a lot of pundits were saying. You can't be moaning about it, and then still playing all these people every single week in, week out, sort of thing. So yeah, you've got to find a balance, I feel, and I don't feel he's necessarily doing that sometimes. And we sort of made criticisms of him playing players in the Champions League when he should have, and it's been a bit all over the place sometimes. He's choice of clientele, I say, but yeah, I think obviously they're still doing well. And I think the one sort of saving grace you can sort of take from this is, since Jurgen Klopp's first game in charge in 2015, Liverpool have recovered more points from losing positions with 85 than any other side
Mm,
in the Premier League. So,
yeah,
that is a sign of a total winning mentality. Is that even
yeah.
though you're not playing particularly well, necessarily you have injuries or the rest of it, they always manage to find a result in the end. And I think that's just going to be an ongoing theme for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I think Liverpool would take second joint top or second in the league with obviously the injuries they've had in that so far this year. So, but I can see them doing business in January because with so many people out, you would imagine they would want to do business to kind of help them maintain that Premier League title.
Yeah, absolutely. But like you said, as long as they're not losing, that will be 2 points dropped. They will be disappointed with that, of course, because, they had the opportunity to go top of the league. But, they'll get other opportunities, I'm sure. And let's move swiftly on to the next game we'll be talking about, which is Leicester 3, Brighton 0. Leicester, another team that are up around near the top of the table. And, they're starting to build some sort of momentum. They're still sniffing around, aren't they?
Yeah, they're third in the league. They're a point behind Liverpool and Tottenham. So that should be a huge. That's where anyone who's a Leicester fan can be happy with that because how many people thought they'd be third in the league? They're above City, they're above United, they're above Chelsea. So it's a huge win for them. And I think the return of the form of James Maddison has helped them greatly as well because he obviously got 2 goals as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like he was, absolutely incredible in that game, and we haven't seen him really, for at least about a year, really, now have that sort of influence on the game. And him and Vardy linked up so well throughout the game. But it was quite strange actually, because I actually felt like Brighton had the better of starts. Had that early chance for Welbeck that was saved by Schmeichel, and then once Leicester started going through the gears a little bit, you really started to see the likes
Mm.
of Maddison and Vardy. And another player that I thought was absolutely incredible all game was Justin,
Mm.
right back for them. He created so many chances for him. I think he did get an assist as well.
Yeah, he did. Yeah.
But like I said, that was really, I think out of all the games I saw this weekend, I think that was the most convincing of the performances. I think they
Yeah.
really were very professional performance from Leicester.
Well, Justin, he was bought from Luton over a season or two ago, and he didn't really get in the Leicester team straight away. So it's good to see him performing after he was bought from Luton. And then James Maddison is a funny one because when he was first bought to Leicester, when we saw him in his first season in Premier League, where he looks like he's going to be a player, and then obviously in came the Jack Grealish comparisons, and then Grealish you would say had a better season than Maddison last year. But then it's kind of like, when you see Maddison performing like that, he can be just as good as Grealish.
Well, that's it. Obviously, we saw him last season fall off the boil a little bit towards the end of the season. But I suppose if you look at Leicester as a whole last season, they all did. So, it's no coincidence that his form was going to suffer because of that as well. But it's good to see him back performing. And like you said, James Maddison has scored his first ever Premier League brace in what is his 78th appearance in the competition. That actually surprised me because I thought he must have done that before. But I suppose he was really more known for his assists last season rather than goals. So I suppose if you can sort of add that to his game as well, then he could really be a great asset for him this season.
I think with Leicester as well, even though they have missed some key players as well with Pereira, Castagna, Soyuncu as well. So they're kind of plodding along plodding along without some of their key players. And I think it's a huge testament to what the job Brendan Rodgers has done as well, because Vardy's got 10 goals and 4 assists now this year, and he's 33 years of age, and he's still doing that.
Yeah, like you said, like they performed really well in this game. Leicester's 8 Premier League wins this season is the most in the division and represents their joint highest number of victories after 12 games of a top flight campaign. So, considering the injuries they have had, especially to the back, which we, recent weeks have sort of said could be the undoing of them because they don't look as secure at the back, and they've gone between the back 4 and the back 5, which has had varied results. I do think, he's holding them together quite well. Quite similar to, I guess what you could say about Jurgen Klopp and everything. They're both keeping it together and keeping them both in the hunt. And I think this was one of the gooder days for them, sort of thing. One of the better.
Yeah, I would say their next 4 games are particularly tough because they've got Everton next, then Tottenham, then Manchester United, then Crystal Palace to end December. So that's not the easiest run-ins for them. So I hope Brendan Rodgers be hoping at least they'll still be in contention of a top 2 finish by the end of the year.
Yeah, I think those would be the sort of, really telling results. This one's a bit of a hard one to sort of judge them on just because Leicester love facing Brighton. They're unbeaten in all 7 Premier League meetings with them. So this is like the opponent they love facing the most at the moment. And
just saying as well, Brighton have only won 4 times in 2020.
Wow. Do you know what? That shocks me. And, that sort of brings us on to Brighton, I suppose. We should speak about them as well. Brighton's 2 wins from the opening 12 Premier League games this season is their joint fewest at this stage of a top flight campaign. So that's quite a daunting stat to have for Brighton. And we sort of talk about them in mixed ways on this podcast because we quite like how they play sometimes, but they just never seem to get over the line, I feel. Like they can have some promising moments, but they just never seem to capitalise, I feel.
I think it goes overshadowed because, people think, Brighton play nice football because it's Graham Potter. But then it's like, but Chris Hughton really didn't deserve to get sacked at Brighton. You would say Chris Hughton done an amazing job at Brighton. So why was he sacked?
Well, I suppose now it goes down to the whole argument of style over substance sort of thing. This argument is quite a big one these days in modern football. People will moan about Jose Mourinho and he's sort of negative football, but he wins games. Graham Potter can make Brighton look very good and, tick. You sort of saw how they play against the likes of Manchester United when really they should have won that game. And you sort of think, but they're not winning games. They're not getting results. And they've got some decent players there as well. So it's a difficult one. I think they have to sort of look at what they're doing here because I don't think they're a team that should be getting relegated. And if they manage to get themselves in that battle, you just don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I think for them, they kind of need to choose results over the style because it will eventually cost you doing that way. Because I think I remember everyone remembers Stoke, how they're playing under Pulis, but then it's like, we don't play good enough football, and that kind of bit them in the arse.
Yeah, like you said, and hopefully that's not the case for them because, we've sort of said before how we like Graham Potter and
I don't, I'm Palace.
I know you don't, of course. All the rest of us seem to quite like him. But obviously, we'll see in next few weeks if they're going to be in trouble. And obviously, congratulations to Leicester again on that resounding victory. Right, that is it for the first half. Join us for the second half where we will speak about the rest of the weekend's action.
To keep up to date with the show and contact us, you can follow us on Instagram, Facebook or Twitter at FaveFootballPod. You can email us on hello@favouritefootball.com. You can support the show financially on Patreon at patreon.com/favouritefootball. Also, if you've enjoyed the show, please leave a 5-star as it helps more people find the podcast. And of course, share with your friends.
Hello and welcome back. Right, let's get straight into it then. Let's start with Friday. We had the obviously 1 game with Leeds 1, West Ham 2, and another great victory for West Ham, Ben.
I mean, they were my favourites. They were my favourites to go down. That's why I'm going but they're 6th in the league. I mean, after maybe the not most convincing start, they've been able to pick up a few results, and they're 6th and 2 points behind Chelsea and on the same points as Everton and Man United. So you can't say that West Ham haven't deserved to be up there because they have been playing quite well and been getting the results.
Well, that's it. That's a David Moyes effect. Maybe you should have stayed at United. But yeah, that sort of start of that first incident. Obviously, in the 6th minute, you have Bamford that was brought down by Fabianski for the penalty. The first attempt was saved, obviously, but then VAR says retake it because of that whole off the line rule. So it's not nice to see, to be honest, because I think it's a shit rule, to be honest. But as a goalkeeper, surely you just have to stay on the line all the time because you run the risk of this keep happening.
Yeah, for me, it's if a goalie's really off the line, like if they're coming like a yard off the line, then it's a huge difference. But if they're like over it a tiny, tiny little bit, then you really should kind of give them the benefit of the doubt because what's that going to do to affect the game of play?
I know it's refereeing gone mad, isn't it? I don't remember anyone ever really even calling for that, to be honest, even be a rule. But like you say, Klish actually scores a second attempt, and we sort of move on because West Ham, to be honest, they dominated the game. And again, it's a weakness with Leeds that we've spoken about before. Set pieces, Bowen corner to the back post where Soucek was. And he heads past Meslier. Could have probably done better to save it. But again, they look vulnerable from set pieces, don't they?
Yeah, they've conceded 7 goals on set pieces in the Premier League this season. You can see that's Achilles' heel, and they've had the joint most of Leicester. So I don't know what they're trying to do at the 4 set pieces. Is it man marking or zonal marking? Because I know everyone's not the biggest fan of zonal marking, but that's an area of their play where they really need to improve because you can see teams taking advantage of that.
Well, like you said, they're struggling with that. No other side has conceded more than 7, like you said, level with Leicester City. But on the other hand, West Ham have scored the most with 8, level with Chelsea. So, I suppose if you have both forces, one that are absolutely exceptional so far this season with set pieces and one that are really struggling, we should have really seen this result coming because, again, the second goal, which was a fantastic header from Ogbonna, was again another set piece from Creswell free kick. So, you keep seeing it week in and week out, and it's just something they're not addressing. Like what can the manager do to stop this?
I don't know if that's just Bielsa though, because he's very rigid in his way of playing and he's so methodical in what he does. So I'm not sure if he will change the set piecing or he just prefers to keep his way of play because he may be stubborn in that approach because of the free flowing attacking football and that. But you would imagine he's working on it in the training ground.
Yeah, you'd like to think so. Some of his talent, of course, and Leeds will still have a good start. We'll see where they're going to end up by the end of the season. But obviously, West Ham are doing really well, so let's see where they end up come the end of the year. But let's move on to our next game. Start with the Saturday, which is Wolves 0, Aston Villa 1. Not too sure about actually who I was expecting to win this game, but who do you reckon should have won it?
I mean, if you're taking Jimenez out the Wolves side, then you're going to get a completely different Wolves team because he's been so instrumental to them since they have been promoted, and the best things usually come through him. But yeah, if you got Fabio Silva, he was bought in for huge money as well, and he's a young guy as well. So it's a big shoes to fill, aren't they? If you're doing that, but he's a young guy, and you imagine there's room for improvement there for him. But you would say maybe Aston Villa would have the upper hand this game.
Well, I don't say really anyone really lost the game particularly. I think actually Fabio Silva, like you said, he hit the post at one point. Neto's had a good start to the season, so maybe he could feel the boots of Jimenez while he's away. But yeah, I feel like they kind of have to take their chances a bit more, And I suppose we have to sort of give credit to Martinez, who kept Villa in it for most of the game, a string of really good saves. But most of the action come in the last sort of 10 minutes. We had 2 red cards, one from Douglas Luiz for a second yellow, and Martinho as well for a second yellow offence. But I suppose the 92nd minute is where we saw the real big chance for Aston Villa when Semedo brought down McGinn. El Ghazi scores it, and that's it. That's like
a game decided on a penalty. Yeah, game decided on a penalty again, and Semedo hasn't looked too impressive at Wolves either. I must say he was bought for big money as well to replace Matt Doherty, but he's not really lived up to the hype as well. I think the 4-0 trancing what he had at Anfield when he was at Barcelona is still in his mind.
He's still PTSD from it, I think. He's still still struggling from it. But yeah, obviously a bit of a strange game, I suppose, that one. But it's good to see Aston Villa still sort of maintaining that good start. They've dropped off a little bit. Wolves will be interesting to see how they sort of cope without him as up front. The last sort of couple of games have sort of shown us that maybe that will be a defining factor in the games to come. So, you know, we'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. We move on to the next game, which was Newcastle 2, West Brom 1. 19 seconds it took for the first goal, didn't it?
Yeah, if you're conceding in 19 seconds to a goal that easy, then you're kind of always going to struggle from then on out. But yeah, West Brom were able to get back into the game. Furlong, who was the hero this time compared to last week against Palace. And then
that was a proper goal, that was as well, wasn't it?
That was not bad for a right back, was it?
Oh, you say he literally timed that to perfection, you know, and he came running in and smashed it. I was like, bloody hell, I wasn't expecting that from him. Yeah, 0 last week, hero this week. So that was a fantastic goal.
But then back to 0 with the whole West Brom defence of that Dwight Gale doing what he does best, and then scoring a fantastic header as well.
Well, yeah, that was like you said, it was a wonderful cross in from Murphy, and Dwight Gale funded his header in. But yeah, like you said, the West Brom defence is still a bit worrying. They've got a bit more spirit about them, which is good to see. But, you know, you can't ignore the fact that West Brom have become the first team to concede 25 goals in the Premier League this season. So
yeah, you can tell that's an area that's just going to keep costing them if it doesn't get resolved.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, it's looking a bit daunting, but like you said, they're showing a bit more spirit. So we shall see how they end up come the end of the season. Next game, don't particularly want to speak about, and there's not necessarily loads to even talk about, but it was the Manchester derby. Manchester United 0, Manchester City 0. Possibly the most boring one of all time.
Yeah, nothing generally happened. You would expect maybe a bit of flair, attitude, a bit of aggression in that, but there was nothing. There's nothing, and you see the players after the game like smiling, hugging each other, and it's like it's a derby. Fucking get into him.
Do you know what? Yeah, I did hate that, and it did seem a bit like a exhibition match, to be honest, didn't it? Like, I feel like it maybe would have been different if you had fans in the stadium. I'm sure that would have impacted how, you know, these two really went against each other. But even if you just look quickly at how both managers set up, it's both managers set up with two defensive midfielders. You know, so you had City with Rodri and Fernandinho, and United with Fred and McTominay, which essentially just nullifies both De Bruyne and Bruno Fernandes, who makes things happen. And that was pretty much the story of the game. And obviously, you can say that both defences were very good. You know, Wan-Bissaka kept Sterling quiet once again, and John Stones had an excellent game, which you don't say very often. But it was just very much a team where both managers were not brave at all. And I think if both of them went for it, I think both teams have the vulnerabilities there. They're both there for the taking, you know?
Yeah, if I was Man United, I'd be annoyed because these are your rivals. They have overtaken you as the best team in Manchester. Be up for it. Just get into them and that. Don't bloody after the game, before the game, give handshakes and hugging them and smiling at that. It's a rival game and they're showing you up. Same as City, like you're there to humiliate them. You want to show them that you're best side in Manchester. It just felt a bit like you need some aggression there and to prove it's an actual derby, and then it didn't feel like that at all.
Yeah, I feel like both managers are under pressure, and I feel like both managers felt this is probably the best way to go about it, which is, like I said, it's disappointing really. And I don't think the fans would have stood for it if they were in the stadium. But like you said, both teams defensively have been quite sound actually. Manchester United have kept 3 consecutive clean sheets against Manchester City in all competitions for the first time since the run of 4 in October 1995. So I suppose we'll be happy with that, you know, for results against Manchester City. And Manchester City have kept a clean sheet in each of their last 6 games in all competitions, which is their longest run of shutouts since another run of 6 ending in 2019. So both teams are looking a little bit more stable at the back. So I think we'll sort of see if that carries on in other games, but I don't think either team will be that disappointed. But a real sort of question will be asked of them in the weeks to come, and sort of see how their seasons are going to end up come end of the season. But let's not waste too much time on those two because, you know, like I said, it was absolute shit. And let's actually go to a more action-packed game, which was Southampton 3, Sheffield United 0.
Deserved win. Sheffield United they just don't look very good at all, and it's a shame because we were so admirable of them last year and the way they played, but this year they just seem to be coming unstuck. And you see the players in their squad and the changes he's doing as well. It's like, if you're going into a Premier League game with Burnley and Billy Sharp, no offense to them, who are not Premier League, no offense to them, but they're not Premier League quality, and you're just going to always struggle for goals, aren't you?
Well, like I said, you look at Sheffield United, they're the only fourth side in the top 4 tiers of English football to have no more than 1 point from the opening 12 games of the season. Did you know what other side actually has that record?
Derby.
No, it's Manchester United in 1930 to 1931, who had 0 at that point of the season. So at least you can sort of see that it could be worse for Manchester United. But
yeah, 80 years ago was a lot worse.
exactly. But yeah, Sheffield United again, not really showing too much fight. And it does seem at the moment a bit of a foregone conclusion that they'll be the first side to go down. But on the other hand, Southampton are absolutely flying. Like I said, 3 goals in this game. And those centre backs as well, they keep coming up and scoring. Well, helping scoring at least. Bednarek causing havoc in the box to sort of allow Shea Adams to open the scoring for him. But both him and Vestergaard had fantastic games.
I know that before Hassan before he got there, I know Bednarek wasn't really favoured at Southampton, but obviously Vestergaard and Bednarek are the best centre back options for them. Like Vestergaard, you see how tall he is. He's not a footballer; he's a bloody Viking. He should be in like Norway fighting somewhere. But you see the job that Hassan has done with that Southampton side, and it's incredible. Like, although you could say they had a bad start to the season, losing to Palace and getting trounced by Spurs, but they've really come on leaps and bounds, and it shows how much of an amazing job Hassan has done. And it wouldn't have surprised me if a couple of sides did come in for him, because he's done a good job at Leicester as well, and now he's doing a good job at Southampton. So why shouldn't he be considered for a top job in England or elsewhere?
Well, this is it. And, at the beginning of the season, we was quite critical because he was doing some strange things with his side. Remember, we were speaking about the very high line he was having that kept getting exploited. And eventually he has fixed that. And, they're, back four they have, like I said, are very solid. And I think this is where they're getting the results. And they were struggling a lot of time in the season just trying to get, they'd always start really well in the first half. And then the second half, they sort of die out. But they're sort of, they're gaining that consistency now. Like, obviously, I know they were 2-0 up in the first half anyway. You had that Shea Adams one. Actually, no, it wasn't 2-0 up. It was only 1-0. It was only to the second half when Armstrong, that long range effort was deflected in, which is unlucky. But I don't feel Sheffield United were really offering much in terms of getting back into the game. But yeah, it's good to see Southampton improving. And like West Ham sort of thing, they're the two that are sort of upsetting the apple cart at the moment. So it'd be interesting to see how far they can go and how long they can keep it up for. But yeah, we move on to the next game, which is one of the biggest results actually, which was Crystal Palace 1, Spurs 1. I bet you was really happy with that one, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, I think the first 20 to 25 minutes, I would say Spurs were the better side. Guaita pulled us on good saves, and you would say it was one-way traffic. And the goal which was conceded, it was a howler from him, no doubt about it at all. He made a good couple of saves before that point, and to concede that goal is very, very poor, and he wouldn't be happy with himself in that. But when we conceded the goal, we were the better team throughout the game, and I'm not sure why Tottenham kind of stopped their foot off the pedal in that, and it just seemed that we were the only one that wanted to do anything, Palace. And then I thought a draw was a kind of fair result, it being coming in the 82nd minute.
Well, that's a fair point because they started very well, like you said, and it was a bit of a sucker punch, that Harry Kane goal, especially because obviously the way Guaita should have really stopped it, to be honest, and he made a lot of good saves before then, and obviously he had lows afterwards, which we'll obviously get to, but yeah, I don't understand why Spurs didn't keep going and really sort of finish the job. They kind of just sat off and let Palace do their thing, and we've seen under Hodgson this season that once he's got those attacking players all playing in the same side, they can cause damage, and I think he underestimated them, to be honest, especially the likes of Eze. He sort of warned them when he hit the post with that chance.
Yeah,
then go on, mate.
Oh, sorry. I think it's a bit like I didn't even notice Son or Kane in the second half. I didn't hardly see them get a touch, and I think that showed how well we played. And like you were saying, with the attacking players at our disposal now, I think Benteke, he's done well the last 2 games. He's put himself about. Eze and Saha link up together. If Eze keeps playing like the way he does, then we won't be keeping on to him for too long. And Schlupp's got the goal and he played well. So I think it's kind of like he's letting the attacking players do their part now and wanting to get forward and do something.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, especially those two at the end you just mentioned, Eze and Schlupp. And obviously both of those were involved with your goal. Obviously Eze had the free kick, which was saved by Lloris, and Schlupp was quickest to react and put him in. He does seem to have a bit of a knack of being in the right place, right time, Schlupp, and scoring very important goals.
Yeah, I think it's a poor mistake from Lloris, so I think he should be holding on to that. And I'm not sure if that's your opinion as well.
I felt like he probably could have done better with it, but I kind of sort of probably focusing more on the fact that Schlupp was the quickest to react, and he's actually scored in each of his last 2 Premier League appearances against Spurs. So, he just loves scoring against those guys, and I'm sure you don't mind him doing that yourself. So,
Yeah, what made me laugh is when he celebrated, all the players coming together, and then you try to get to see the fans battle, and the security guards going in and be like, "Can't touch him."
well, I guess that's another thing to mention as well. Obviously, the fans must have been the really important thing to fight back, get into that game. That must have had an impact. You could see, like you said, how they were all celebrating together and shouting, really jeered up. And, that's something we haven't really seen for quite a long time with our fans in the stadium.
Again, like we mentioned for the Everton Chelsea game, look how important it is to have fans back, because the adrenaline. Even if you're losing 1-0, there's still a chance you're going to get back in because the fans are cheering you on and that. And you saw that with Palace against Spurs.
It's saying it must have helped in that last little onslaught as well that he had from Spurs when they, could have scored, except for the heroics of keeper Guaita, who made some absolute worldy saves, especially that Eric Dyer free kick. Oh, absolutely.
In the words of Arias, "You're my Spanish wall."
Well, it was good to see him obviously recover of his early mistake, and I think a 1-1 draw was a fair result for both teams, to be honest.
Yeah.
As was this next fixture, which was definitely a fair result, which was Arsenal 0, Burnley 1. And I can say that because Killick isn't here to defend it. So quickly, let's make the most of it.
What is happening with Arsenal? That is what is happening. You see the reactions on Arsenal fan TV, which make me laugh because they go absolutely insane. But it's a bit like, what are they trying to do? Like, this isn't the Arsenal we were seeing at first under Arteta. What's happened?
Well, it's all gone a bit Pete Tong, hasn't it, really? Like, Arsenal have equalled their worst top flight run at home since December 1959. A sequence, ironically, which was also included a defeat to Burnley. But, their tally of 10 goals after 12 Premier League games is their lowest at this stage of a season since, 1981. And Arsenal have received 6 Premier League red cards since Michael Arteta's first game in charge in 2019, double of any other side. So you're looking at goals, you're looking at conceding goals, and you're looking at discipline, and all of those things are at the worst they've been in about 20 years at least, So it's looking very daunting for them at the moment, and it's hard to pinpoint it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like you don't know what the root of the problem is, because apparently you hear stuff in the media like saying, "Oh, well, there's some 13 players that don't talk to Arteta, or he's very ruthless," and I don't know if it's the players' fault or Arteta needs to get more of his own players in to implement his blueprint. And yeah, it's kind of hard to see that. You can see what the root of their problem is creativity. Because if you're losing 1-0 against Burnley, which if you're at home, you would imagine to score against Burnley, but yeah, even Aubameyang since signing a contract, he's been a completely different player, and it just seems to be no creative spark with Arsenal.
Yeah, he does look really out of sorts, and our producer James actually pointed out that Aubameyang has now scored more against Arsenal than for this season, which is an absolutely hilarious stat. Obviously, not if you're an Arsenal fan, it's pretty damning, but it's so strange to see him like this, because the way they ended last season, everything looked very positive for them. And they've had reinforcements. It's not like they haven't bought anyone in. You had like Partey, I know he's been injured and things like that. And Gabriel Magalhaes, who looks really promising at the start of the season. It's very bizarre. And I suppose you've got to sort of see how the next few weeks go to see if he's really on borrowed time. But I suppose if you look at the Burnley side of things, a great victory for Sean Dyche, and they're starting to look like a team that are a bit more cohesive. Is this the great escape for them?
You would imagine it would set them on their way, because obviously now they've got Ben Mee and Tarkowski back. That's a vital part of who Burnley are, to not concede and maybe nick the odd goal to win the game. So yeah, I mean, they really needed that win, otherwise they would have been at the same points as West Brom, and they've still got a game in hand. So if they win that game in hand, they just go to a point behind Arsenal.
So yeah, it's very interesting to see how these teams near the bottom have done the last few weeks, and they're starting to claw a few points now. But look, for teams like Arsenal and other teams that subsequently are going to lose points against them as well, the pressure starts coming on a little bit for those teams in like the mid-season, mid-table fodder rather. It's be interesting, because there's not a lot of points between top and bottom, like you say. So there could be a few switcheroos that we can see in the next few weeks.
Yeah, it's either a stick or twist. If you either stick with someone under fire, or twist and try and get a new idea in.
Well, that's it. And I suppose all teams in the Premier League this season will have to, have that rationale and argument. to see which direction they're going in. But that's the beauty of the Premier League, and that's what we're going to see. This is why this has been one of the most exciting Premier League starts of the season we've had so far. And that's it, Ben. That's the end of all the weekend's action.
Da da da.
I know, but obviously we've got loads of football coming up in the midweek, which we will cover on the extra time. Just obviously before we go, we'd just like to say condolences to the family of Gerard Houllier, who was the manager of Liverpool, and obviously he's passed away. So it's very sad news, isn't it, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, you see Jamie Carragher and Steven Gerrard coming out saying he was a special guy and that as well. And he's kind of always done a good job where he went. Like, he was a triple winner at Liverpool. Ellis as well, who's a Liverpool fan on the podcast, was very highly rated of Houllier as well, and kind of set Liverpool for the Champions League as well. So a lot of their maybe Champions League success is down to him in the 2000s, getting them back into the Champions League as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think he definitely was one of the main reasons that they sort of where they are now. He sort of set those sort of foundations and started the whole project off, really. And obviously now it's been finished so well by obviously Jurgen Klopp. But I feel like he's definitely a part in that, and definitely the switch of direction that they led the club in. And obviously our usual host James Killick sort of said earlier, this one feels quite strange actually, just because I suppose because it's someone that we remember quite fondly of, like early 2000s football, which is when we first really started, like our obsession was really blossoming in football, and we remember him so well. Obviously, we've had some really sad news with like Maradona in recent weeks and all the rest of it. But I suppose you don't expect someone who's this young, really, because he wasn't particularly old, was he?
He was 70. He was 73, so he had a lot of years in him as well. His last job was Aston Villa in 2010-11, and he guided them to 9th, and they've not been able to beat that position since.
That's what I mean. I think, like you said, because he was quite recent in our memories, and like you said, memories of him and that Liverpool side in the early 2000s, I suppose, is a bit more prominent. But again, like I said, condolences to him, his family, and all the rest of it. He'll be sadly missed in the world of football. That's where we'll probably end it. Like we said, we'll have extra time in the middle of week because we have midweek Premier League fixtures, you lucky bunch. So stay tuned for then. Goodbye, people.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.